This budget from a company and business standpoint, I think, is a budget of continuity, stability, predictability. The whole effort is to try and make the environment more taxpayer friendly and less hostile.
Is there anything for individuals, people like you and me?
For individuals, the TCS on LRS payments has been reduced.
You would say that this is more a build for long-term budget than, do a big bang now.
So I don't think, other than these one or two things like data center and buyback, there are any very big, so to say, SOPs available for taxpayers. So as I see it, a taxpayer-friendly budget in that sense.
Hi, welcome to the ET Budget Studio. Today we have with us Pranav Sayta from Ernst Young. Pranav, your core focus and area is direct tax. So let's just jump right into it. First of all, can you give us a sense on how and what kind of critical announcements have happened in the realm of direct tax for companies? And then we'll get on to individuals. But let's start with what happened when it comes to companies and what will be their impact.
Understood. Very clear, Deepak. So this budget from a company and business standpoint, I think, is a budget of continuity, stability, predictability. I don't think there are very many big ticket announcements, but at the same time, quite a few things which really give the thrust on simplicity, on trying to reduce litigation, trying to ensure investments are in the right sectors or focused areas, and primarily trying to ensure that there is a building of trust between taxpayers and the government together. So as I see it, for example, in terms of simplicity, quite a few provisions in relation to advanced pricing agreements, which will now be done in a time-bound manner, especially for IT services sector, safe harbor provisions, which have been increased significantly, bringing in more certainty on an expanded coverage of universe for safe harbors. Provisions like big tax holidays, which are for data centers trying to focus investments going into certain areas. I think that's a big move, and the exemption continues till 2047. So that's a big one.
So essentially, when you look at all the announcements, more so in the, tax area for companies, is this to ensure there is better compliance and less fear when it comes to all of these relaxations, or at least build trust and comfort, saying, hey, we're reducing the barriers, like you rightly said, from 20 to 10% and various other norms? Is the clear motto that it's better that you trust us and comply rather than, hoodwink us and then try and save taxes?
Yeah, and the whole effort is to try and make the environment more taxpayer friendly and less hostile, as I would see it. And the big thrust in terms of tax benefit, new tax benefits are going to the IT services sector, particularly capability centers, GCCs in particular, and in terms of data centers, for example, in terms of contract manufacturing, toll manufacturing, there are some clear direct tax benefits. So there are some areas, primarily services, IT sector, and manufacturing, toll manufacturers that really have benefited in terms of tax holidays or benefits. Otherwise, it's more about simplicity, trying to ensure ease of doing business, in trying to ensure certainty by providing safe harbor provisions, decriminalization by making things more taxpayer friendly rather than hostile. Similarly, the stay of demand, as I said, and so on and so forth, from a company or business standpoint.
Can we get into specifics, 2 or 3 announcements that you think really make an impact and are in this direction that we talked about? Better compliance and trust. Can we get into specifics now?
Yeah. So for example, better compliance, trust. One is decriminalization. There are a whole host of provisions where prosecution has been done away with or reduced, where, for example, even in terms of the compliances by the taxpayer, they've been reduced. For example, safe harbor, it ensures that if you are within a certain range, the thresholds have been raised tremendously from 300 crores for GCCs to 2,000 crores. You are within that safe harbor range, all the compliances go away, or most of the compliances are reduced, and so on and so forth. So as I see it, a taxpayer-friendly budget in that sense.
Okay. Can you also help us understand what exactly is the tax relief given to those companies investing in IT and cloud space, the big, 22-year kind of relief till 2047? Can you
Correct.
help us understand who does it matter to and what is it about?
So this relief is in terms of a tax holiday for cloud services that are provided for cloud services, data center services provided to for cloud services, and for all practical purposes, it is for all customers. But for overseas customers, there's a full tax holiday. If there are Indian customers, the requirement is to have an Indian subsidiary, for example, as a reseller, which obviously will be subject to Indian tax. And again, then the overseas company is fully tax exempt. So what we are talking about here is full tax exemption for the next maybe till 2047. We have to see, of course, the full fine print. For overseas customers, for Indian customers, it has to be routed through an Indian reseller, which therefore the Indian entity will be subjected to Indian tax, but the overseas entity again is tax exempt.
So, for instance, if Google or Facebook comes and invests in data center, right? They're the ones who get this tax exemption, but they have to route it through an Indian entity and have a
For
partner
Indian
deal.
customers, it has to be routed through an Indian entity. So
Okay,
long as it's servicing Indian customers, it has to be routed through an Indian entity. All right.
right. And if that data center is serving only international entities, then
That's
they're
fine.
fully tax exempt.
That's fine. Yes.
Right. Okay. And vis-a-vis an Indian entity putting in the hardware and all the infrastructure required for data center, but to serve entities outside,
Right.
does that person also get full 100% tax
Yes,
exemption
as I understand, yes. So far as yes, overseas
as of now?
customers
But
are
yeah,
concerned. Yes, correct,
we'll need to read the fine print. Great.
correct,
So
correct.
this is in the realm for companies when it comes to direct tax. Is there anything for individuals, people like you and me?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, again, the same thread continues: continuity, stability, simplicity, bringing in certainty and reducing litigation. So, for example, again, for individuals, the TCS on LRS payments has been reduced significantly, both for tour expenses, both for again for education, medical, and so on and so forth, from 5% or 20% to 2%, and the thresholds also have been relaxed. So that is one big thing. In terms of filing of 15G, 15H is for lower deduction of tax at source. Again, that can be done through the depository, so it makes it much simpler rather than having to go through the tax office and so on. And one depository filing will mean all companies are covered. In short, considerable amount of simplicity for taxpayers in terms of ensuring lower withholding of taxes. So those are the things which I believe are considerably helpful in terms of improving the taxpayer friendly environment within the direct tax regime. In fact, there is something similar when it comes to customs. The procedural relaxations have been significant, and the whole effort is to try and come up with a procedure which is more based on self assessment and reliance on the self assessment for clearances and so on and so forth. So I think the whole thrust seems to be to try and streamline, rationalize, make things simpler, and build a taxpayer friendly regime.
Right. So from ease of business, this move is actually ease of tax paying, if
Correct,
I can term
correct,
it that.
correct,
Okay, great.
absolutely.
And on the LRS, it helps those who are sending kids abroad to study that
Correct.
the
Or for
5%
medical, or for
or for
medical, or
medical.
medical, or for tour operators and so on. When I go through tour operators abroad and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So on
So
all
this
of those,
5% deduction, it was a TDS or a TCS, 5%
TCS.
on
It was a
TCS,
TCS.
which is now down to 2% as
2%.
TCS.
That's right. That's right.
Great. Any other big moves that you noticed which you would like to reflect upon?
So I think these are, in some, more or less, the tax-related changes that the government has announced.
Right.
Buyback tax, removing buyback tax as dividend and moving over to capital gains tax is indeed a big thing, a big positive, I would feel, especially for non-promoters, and that should help a lot of individual taxpayers as well. Because when it comes to large companies having big cash pools but not having enough capex to incur, when they move on to do a buyback, at least for all the non-promoters, the capital gains tax regime can be considerably more advantageous than a dividend taxation regime. for buyback proceeds. So that I think is a very good thing. Not only does it allow the cost of the shares as a deduction, but the capital gains tax rate itself would be lower. So I think that's a very positive move as well.
Right. So on the whole, you would say that this is more a build for long-term budget than, do a big bang now and then, worry later.
Correct. So I don't think, other than these one or two things like data center and buyback, there are any very big, so to say, swaps available for taxpayers, nor any big negatives as well.
Right. Fair enough. So don't try to fix which ain't broken and
Correct.
continue on the path that was set out, because last
Correct.
year there were enough big bang reforms
Absolutely.
announced, at least on the taxation, individual
Absolutely.
taxation front. So this year more so, is this because there's so much of topsy-turvy at the geopolitical level that you don't want to change large course of metrics and take steps one step at a time?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot, Pranav. Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
so much,
inputs.
Deepak. Pleasure speaking to you. Bye.
Thank you.